Hello, good morning. My name is Bill Hincher and I own Bill's Auto Fab. I build bell housings for the 4G63 turbo motors. And what I'd like to show you today is how I mounted up the W58 Toyota non-turbo transmission to the narrow block R4G63 turbo engine. The first thing I had to make was a plate that would center the starter to the two guide bolts on the block, and then I added a few extra features. This is drilled for the second generation 4G63 as well as the first. So first thing I wanted to do is put this on there. It's a snap fit, it has to be. The second thing I had to do was I had decided to put the Toyota pilot bearing into the crankshaft and not the flywheel. I wanted to put the transmission as close as I could to the crankshaft. I wanted to get a center line off the crankshaft instead of the flywheel. And all the way around it worked out great. The thing I had to do is I had to build a bushing that would allow the pilot bearing to fit into the crankshaft. So what I did is just took a little piece of aluminum and made a sleeve. Go right in there. Then I placed the bearing in there. And there you have it. I want to show you that to make sure that everybody knows where we're at on that. And it won't let me go. Well, anyway. The next thing I had to do was I had to make the center of the hole for the flywheel large enough to accept the input shaft of the transmission. So that center hole has to be enlarged to about 30 millimeters. It can be down around 29 millimeters, it can be up around 31 millimeters. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be large enough for the input shaft to spin freely inside of. So, put this in there. Now I'm just going to use a couple bolts to bolt it up. This demonstration motor that I built is a old 4G63 that burned up the crank, so I cut it in half. And everybody kind of wondered what the heck I was thinking of. Everything I used was a front wheel drive, first generation, flywheel, starter, and pressure plate. The reason I used the front wheel drive is I wanted the largest clutch pressure plate I could get in there. The all-wheel drive flywheel is a little bit smaller in diameter. Now what I used on here, I went out and I found out a stock 9-inch Toyota disc is what's going to fit on the W58. Actually it's a W55 all the way through W59 non-turbo transmission. So I also found out that that fits perfectly into the Mitsubishi flywheel. Then I used Mitsubishi first generation front wheel drive, pressure plate, it's important that you should use a thread chaser and make sure that all your threads are clean in the block and in the flywheel before you put these pieces up, and then make sure and follow the torque guide in the service manual. On these pressure plate bolts, you'll want to walk around it, index it, so that you don't warp the spring. Sometimes if you just run that bolt down, you'll put a warp in your clutch plate. So you want to torque it evenly. I'm just going to torque it to hand tight, because I'm not going to run the single cylinder 4G63 very far. But that's the whole setup. You got your flywheel cut in the center, you got your pilot bearing mounted up in the crank, you got your Toyota disc using your Mitsubishi pressure plate. And the thing that I have here is this fine little unit. This is the bell housing that I made using a front wheel drive narrow block on the front. I added the 7 bolt crank, the 7 crank second generation block has an extra bolt in it. I put that in there. Then I added these 2 extra pieces, and you'll notice I put a little steel insert in them. And those pieces are there in the event that you want to add extra structure up to the motor, or it'd be recommended like on a 4-wheel drive setup where you have a lot of weight in there. You can see the back is drilled out for the W58. Everything's all set there and squared away. This is all done in a CNC mill after this is all casted. I guess the thing I ought to do, what I need to do is to assemble an imitation transmission, which is the front of the trans that's just cut off, onto my bell housing. You can see how it fits down in there, just like the engine would see it. And what I used was I used a standard Toyota pivot ball right out of the W58 transmission. And it bolts right down in there. Then I used the whole clutch fork assembly right out of the Toyota. I used the Toyota sleeve, the Toyota throwout bearing, the Toyota clutch fork, and the clips. They're all right out of the W58. And that way I could use the clips and all. I used to mess around with the Mitsubishi fork and this and that and the other thing, but I wanted to go this way so I had all the geometry just exactly like it came out of the toy. So there's the whole system all laid out. It's just as simple as can be. This is all centered down in here for the slave cylinder and for the push rod and everything. Then show you how I did this. Yes, I know this is upside down, but that's the way it come out. You can see our throw-up bearing, clutch fork, our clips are all in and everything. And it all fits right on there, just like downtown. Now on the bottom bolts, you'll notice, are huge, are long, and these bosses are very long. These are custom made, don't lose them. I had to build a machine to make them. And the reason that they are so long is for two reasons. The narrow block has the bolts in very close to each other, and it didn't give me a lot of room to build the arc for the flywheel. There's an arc inside the flywheel that extends back about 1.5 inches where the flywheel and the clutch pressure plate are all spinning. And I wanted to get this boss behind that so it was more down on the curve into the back of the housing so that I had more strength all the way from the back of the transmission up. All the starter bolts and the upper bell housing bolts are all the same length. I put these in there as far as I could, just about where they're bottoming out. After you put the lock washer on there, it'll bring the bolt out just about 2 threads, so that you'll have a firm grip on that bell housing, on that block. And I wanted all the bolts that I could to be in there. Now after that bell housing is folded up, and I can still freely spin my motor, and I have the big transmission input shaft. That all goes up there just as nice as can be. You'll find the 2 guide pins that come with the Toyota transmission go in there just like they should, and that whole unit spins freely. Now, with this clutch involved, I can simulate depressing the clutch, and I can spin the input shaft as free as can be. When I let up, it's locked. Each one of these bell housings get this done to it. I put everything together, and I do it with a dial indicator, so I know exactly what you're getting. Now, I've got to show you the rest of it. Let's see. Still moving. Let's just try that. On this side, you got the starter. I used a front wheel drive, first generation starter. Goes right into its original position, sets down into that centering plate, and bolts in just as nice as can be. For my clutch system, I used a 1990 Celica non-turbo slave cylinder. These come with my bell housing. I used the original push rod and all, and I have the exact same geometry that comes with that 90 Toyota Celica. And the master cylinder for that car will put everything right into place. I'm not quite certain what the piston is in the Toyota. I've always just used the same master. And there you have it. That's the whole system. Now, in addition to these things, what I had previously done I had built these sidebars that went up in here and bolted down to this extra flange, bolted to the block where the existing mounting engine block was, and then bolted to this end here, and that brought a lot of strength, and it made it so that I could put 8 bolts into a 4-bolt system, because on the other side I did exactly the same thing on the other side of the system. Well, a lot of guys weren't using this because a drag link or something was in the way here. So what I'm going to do in my near future is I will be building an oil pan system that will either have a front or rear sump, and I'll incorporate these bolt holes into that. In the meantime, if you can find a place to your own advantage to attach this to here and this to here, you would get a whole lot more strength involved. But I believe with the extra long bolts in my lower bosses that I have enough strength in there that I really don't need it. It just depends on how heavy you're going to use the thing and how hard the service life is going to be. But I built these in so that you can take advantage of them if you'd like to. Well, I thank you very much for watching my little program here, and I hope you have a lot of fun with it, enjoy it, get a lot of years use out of it, and tell a friend. I'm in Toledo, Ohio. My name's Bill, and I own Bill's Auto Pad. Thank you very much.